On August 13th, after multiple warnings over several months, armed officers of the Oakland City Police Department busted into the Zide Door Church of the Entheogenic Plants, breaking into safes and taking with them $200,000 in cash, psychedelic mushrooms, and cannabis. But as a self-declared church, the group's leaders say that they should be exempt from criminal prosecution. Zide Door is the latest example of a group holding psychedelic ceremonies who claim that their actions are illegal under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the 1993 law which created legal protections for the spiritual use of psychedelics. But what kind of psychedelic use does the Religious Freedom Restoration Act actually protect? If you're part of a group having profound mystical experiences with mushrooms, ayahuasca, or any other psychedelics, can you get legal recognition and protection as a religion? To help us navigate this complex terrain, today we'll be talking with Dan Peterson, a lawyer in Washington, D.C., who has been helping groups that use psychedelics to prepare defenses for their practices on the basis of a religious freedom defense. He's now founded a vocational organization for entheogenic practitioners. Dan, so glad you could join us.
Happy to be here, Marisa.
So please tell us, what does legal precedent say about what is and isn't religious use under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act? And what does a church or even a practitioner need to do to claim protections under this act?
Well, what I think is funny about this to a lot of people in the world of entheogenic practices is I think a good number of people hit on the idea pretty quickly that everything is sacred, actually. That the unity experience that many of us have with entheogens really communicates that the idea that some things are religious and some things are not is kind of nonsensical. But we live in this world where the United States has for a long time distinguished between the religious and the secular. So the main answer to the question is, what is not secular? And what courts have come up with for the most part in that is to say that your beliefs must have something to do with the nature of reality, the nature of being. That's what's really most indicative of whether your practice is religious in nature. There's no application process. Actually, there is an application process. The DEA does have a RFRA exemption process, which lawyers in this space, we're all pretty much in consensus that it's a bad idea for anyone to engage in. And it's possible that it's unconstitutional for the DEA to try to regulate religious activity in the first place. So in general, we advise against pursuing those applications. What really matters is that you do in fact have a sincere religious exercise going on.
The decriminalized legislation say that the entheogenic plants are of the lowest enforcement priority, and the warrant was specifically issued for cannabis and not psilocybin. So this case has very little to actually do with psilocybin, and not to mention that, according to the Oakland Police Department, they were illegally operating a cannabis dispensary. Does this invalidate the defense that the Religious Freedom Restoration Act can protect the Zide Door Church?
Not necessarily. The use of cannabis may in fact be sacramental in nature, and I certainly am of the belief that it is and can be. So that's not necessarily what's at issue. The bigger question, though, is that the law still gives the government another chance to regulate someone's activity, even if they are religious, even if they are sincere, even if the government is burdening their beliefs. If Zide Door's conduct is negatively impacting public health or safety, which the city of Oakland is alleging that it does, the government still has a right to regulate their activity, even if they are religious in nature.
The Zide Door Church's attempt to use a religious freedom defense has been criticized by community members as insincere. Does that make it more difficult for other groups who do qualify under the current law to mount a successful defense, in your opinion?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think there are important distinctions here in terms of the conduct of Zide Door versus most of the practitioners in the community. Zide Door is openly selling cannabis and psilocybin to its parishioners, its participants, its customers, in the same location on a regular basis. The vast majority of practitioners I'm familiar with don't sell substances. They offer experiences of which substances are a part. And more broadly, there are precedents out there already on both sides of the issue of sincerity. And I will say that in general, cannabis churches have not fared well in the US courts. But at the same time, those negative precedents haven't harmed organizations like UDVA and Santo Daime, who have successfully petitioned for religious freedom protection.
Can you tell us about the vocational organization for plant medicine practitioners that you've been putting together? Who are you looking for to join it?
Sure. Well, it's an organization of facilitators from a variety of traditions. We have people from Amazonian lineages, people who have come in from Burning Man transformational culture, people who would identify as underground therapists and doctors who are providing these medicines because they believe it's their obligation to help their patients as best they can. So the uniting force is that we all believe in we all have a sincere belief in the religious nature of the entheogenic experience. And we believe that that ritual and that religious belief is what unites us. And the goal ultimately is the primary goal is to create greater legal safety for everyone involved with that basis in mind. And that means addressing all of these issues. So legal defense insurance, self-regulation, ongoing education, and potentially even conflict resolution for facilitators among themselves and with clients. So really, we're looking for anybody who's devoted to this work, who treats it as a calling and embraces its spiritual nature.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan.
Thank you for having me, Marisa.